Good morning, Mwiriwe and Ndamanawalach. So, I just want to add a little bit more on the conversation that I had with you all yesterday, which was so when I ended my video yesterday, I was talking about the Vision 2050 of the Republic of Rwanda. So, some of the questions that have been routed to me, and I even asked myself this question, or I've been asking myself this question recently, is it possible? Is it achievable? Let's look at, let's walk down this path. Let's see where it takes us. So, number one, when I assess whether something is achievable or not, I look at the situation today, and then I can add in some assumptions, factor in growth rates, and then see where that takes us. So right now, Rwanda's GDP per capita, which is GDP divided by the population, is about $890, according to the agreed figures, right? So that means that barring any changes, any shocks in the system, if we factor in an inflation rate of 6%, so the inflation rate in the United States is 6%, that means then that in 28 years, which is what, 2050, right? So in 28 years, if you're one of those people in Rwanda that's making $890 and you remain steady in getting your income, then $890 today is actually $4,400 in 2050. And so that means that if everything remains the same, and you do what you've been doing, right, and getting your income, then in 2050 you would be making about $4,400. So that means that you're already a third way there, because $12,000 minus $4,400, that's $8,000. So you have about you're 30% there already. And I get the $12,000. So that's the number that the government of Rwanda wants to have as GDP per capita, $12,000. So even if nothing happens and everything remains the same, you would still be about 30% there in 28 years, which is not bad. It's still an improvement. Of course, we factor in inflation. So number two, when you look at a number, a projected number, there are things to consider, such as population growth. So right now, the population of Rwanda is a little over 12 million souls. In 28 years, if you factor in population growth, which is about 2.5% in Rwanda, even if you take it to 3%, then the population should be around 30 million people. So there's that. Also, when you look at, what is GDP per capita? Well, that's just total GDP divided by the population. So that means that we have to look at the actual formula for calculating GDP. So there are three ways to calculate GDP, but really, if we want to keep it simple, GDP is government expenditures. We have net exports, we have consumption, and we have investments. So even within that formula, there are different segments that we can address in terms of policy as a government. And we can also, if we have policies that are put in place to increase the spending of one of those segments, and if we have the human capital to harness that growth in spending in that particular segment, then the rest is pretty straightforward, because you have the policy to support certain growth and you have the human capital to take advantage of that policy. and to garner results, then you will be successful. The other advantage that we have as Rwandans is that we have time. And any problem can be solved with time, with careful preparation. And even if it's not preparing or in terms of investing in human capital, as one thing that we have to keep in mind is that as long as things remain constant, as long as shocks in the economy are avoided, significant shocks. So, for example, if we look at the United States, significant shocks in our economic system are, market crashes, for example. So we had the 2019, so end of 2019, early 2020 market crash. And we had the housing market crash in 2009, 2008. So as long as we can think about or anticipate the crashes, we can move accordingly. And as long as we keep shocks away from the system, then that gives us an advantage as well. So when it comes to Rwanda and Africa, or I would say East Africa in general, major shocks that would affect the system, and these are shocks that will affect not just everyday lives, but also capital markets, right? So for example, in 1994, when we had that genocide happen to us, so obviously the banking sector was affected. So whenever there is conflict like that, all of the savings in the national bank, or the cash that's in the national bank, makes its way elsewhere. So if you had savings, if you were Rwandan and in the bank, if you maybe put in the bank, let's say 50,000 francs in maybe 1993, early 1993. Around April 1994, the bank was closed. Okay, number one. Number two, after it opened, your money was in there. So that's just how conflicts, and of course you had to be alive to even go check for your money. So those are just shocks that will happen to the population in terms of savings and having your capital still there. So we do have to make sure that we avoid conflict in Rwanda and keep the peace. So security is very, very important in keeping investor confidence. And when we talk about investor confidence, this also affects capital markets, so stocks, bonds, and equities and debt instruments. So right now on the capital, or on the Rwandan stock exchange, there are 5 Rwandan companies that are listed. All of them are affordable. If you live in the diaspora, I do recommend for you to contact a broker so you can buy, some of those stocks, and they pay dividends. The way that you can contact a broker is that you just go on the Rwandan Stock Exchange website. There's a section that has members or something like that. I'll put the link somewhere in this, along this video. You have the contact information of certified brokers. So this is not just someone that you talk to, randomly. So these are institutions and companies that have gone through an approval process. They have paid for licensing fees. They have the training, etc., etc. So you have to find their information from the Rwandan Stock Exchange and use that information to contact those, those brokers directly. So the broker that I am going to use is with the Bank of Kigali. So I've already contacted them. And it's pretty straightforward. They give you the information you want. In fact, they give you additional information. So my question when I contacted the broker at Bank of Kigali was, okay, so I would like to invest in stocks, and I wanted a list of the stocks. And this was a little bit of a test to see what the response would be like, and how fast I would get a response. So the response was pretty quick. I got the answer to my question, and I even found out about a fund that is very liquid. It's called Virunga. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but I found out about a very liquid fund that I can invest in that was tax-free. If you know me, and you know that I like things that are tax-free. So we want to avoid anything that will affect the capital markets in Rwanda. So that, and for Rwanda, unfortunately, we have to make sure that there is no conflict. And I think every Rwandan is working towards that, and we will make sure that it doesn't happen. So that's an economic shock to consider. Another thing that we have to consider in terms of looking at 2050, we have to look at the market. As in, what is going to be, so what kind of profession will allow someone to make $12,000 living in Rwanda? And so when you look at the future, one thing that I can definitely guarantee you, if you're watching this video and you are living in Rwanda, the crypto market, crypto assets. And I know this because, so I am a contractor for a major financial services company here in the United States. I will not name names. But what it allows me to do as, so I'm a tax advisor and a business strategist. I get to talk to everyday, or not really everyday Americans, but I get to talk to aspiring entrepreneurs and businessmen and businesswomen in America every day. When I get on the phone with them, we talk about some figures, and we talk about the future, we talk about hurdles. So I can tell that from my portfolio of clients, which I have about 200 clients that I advise, the ones that are in the crypto market, they earn more, significantly more. And not only do they earn more, but they can earn this from a computer system in their homes. They don't have to go anywhere, right? They do have to have the knowledge, but once they have the knowledge, once you have the knowledge and you know, get set with a computer system, get your certifications, you can earn that $12,000. In fact, most of the entrepreneurs that I talk to that are working and servicing the crypto market, minimum their salary is about $80,000. So that means that you, as a Rwandan living in Rwanda, if you take the time to learn about the crypto markets, if you, you know, maybe start with learning about the crypto market, if it's maybe 2, 3, or 4 of you, even if it takes you 2-3 years, by the end of that time, you will have your certifications, you will have your physical setup all set in terms of computers. Make sure that you have data. You can earn that $80,000. Yes, you can. Obviously, you have to speak English if you're working with someone in the United States. But that's, you know, it's not, of course, it's going to be hard to get to that point, but you can definitely do it. It's possible. So that's another thing that we can look at in terms of how do we get to $12,000? How can you make $12,000 in 2050? So things to consider when we look at Vision 2050 is, okay, if nothing happens, ceteris paribus, then where are we going to be? And so from where we're at today, if nothing happens, we would still be about 1/3 of the way there, because $890 today is going to be worth about $4,400. That's with an inflation rate of 6%. Number two, anticipate economic shocks and move accordingly, avoid shocks that will really rattle the system. So for Rwanda, we have to make sure that the country is safe from war and from physical attacks, physical conflicts, right? Because if there are shocks like that to the system, then the capital markets will be affected. Investors that have savings will not invest in Rwanda. So that's something that we have to, keep the peace. And that's what we're doing. Every Rwandan is doing that. And number 3, look at industries that are guaranteed to provide that $12,000 in income. And one of those is definitely the crypto market and even the service industry in general. As long as you identify a market where you can work from your house, you should be able to do that, even if it takes you 2-3 years. At the end of that training period, and after getting the infrastructure, and for an individual, the infrastructure really is data, computers, and speak English, and of course get your certifications. Then you can get to that $12,000. So when you consider all of these things, Vision 2050 is absolutely achievable. In fact, I think we are already halfway there. So one way to know when you're onto something, one way to know if something is achievable, you also have to look at the feedback that you get when you present something. So once the feedback moves from mockery to opposition, that means that it is definitely achievable. And I think we can all agree that Rwanda does experience opposition, not mockery. So, especially the government right now. And that means that what we're saying, that the policies that are being enacted will come to fruition. Because as far as I can remember, I think opposition is really the last hurdle to get over. I forget what. I know that Gandhi mentioned something about first they laugh at you, they oppose you or something. But anyways, after you move away from the mockery, then that's an extra step in the right direction. So that's good. So this again goes back to me trying to explain to the diaspora whether Vision 2050 is possible. And yes, it is possible. In fact, we are a third of the way there. And we will keep this energy, and we will get there. And so it's possible. So the way that I move now is that I'm no longer wondering whether, is it possible or not. It is possible. The next step is how. How do we do it? What segments do we address? What segments do we improve? How can we mold policy to get to that point? And Rwanda is already doing that. This goes back to the amendment in the tax law that was enacted just this year in November. For that allows for investors, and remember that investment is a segment, is part of the calculation for GDP. We have investments. So now you can invest in Rwanda and not have to not be subject to double taxation. So Rwanda is already working on the policy side, and when it comes to human capital, Africa is blessed with a vibrant youth, an industrious youth, an entrepreneurial youth, and Rwanda, especially because of our history, is very determined. The Rwandan youth is determined, and that's great. So I think we have everything that we need. We have all of the ingredients that we need, and so we're going to make a very, very nice sauce. It's going to be tasty, and so it's wonderful to actually be part of this this journey, even from the diaspora. What we can do as the diaspora, a specific action that we can do is contact a broker, invest in the capital markets. I mentioned that the capital markets are affordable. And of course, when you're investing something, always invest money that you're willing to lose. That's just the rule of the game. And all of the stocks are affordable. They're all under $1. There are some funds that are very liquid, like the Virunga fund. I think the minimum to invest in is 100,000 francs, which is $100. And it pays you dividends every 6 months, tax-free. So there we go. That's pretty, it's pretty straightforward there. Another thing that you can do as the diaspora is actually participate in terms of your time and your knowledge on how to improve at least one of the segments that are used in calculating GDP. And the segments that we can really affect as the diaspora is the investment segment. And of course, when you're visiting, visit Rwanda, spend your money there because that will go into consumption. But we all have a part to play, and just even doing that, knowing that you have a part to play, and investing in stocks and the Virunga fund, that helps tremendously. So just wanted to go a little bit in depth about, is Vision 2050 possible? Absolutely, it is possible, and we're going to do it. Another thing that I'm just going to touch on really quickly is so Diaspora Venture Capital. I mentioned that we are going to have, or the goal is to have 100 accounts by the end of the year, so that we can fund, to fund the fund. And one of the things that I'm going to do and that I'm going to share with you all is I'm going to take the CMA exam, the Capital Markets Authority, which is the regulating body of the capital markets in Rwanda. In order to be a broker, you have to have a certification. So I live in the United States, and never thought that I would take an exam. Take an exam of another jurisdiction, but that's what I'm going to do. And actually, it's motivating to me because then I would be talking about investing in my own native country, which has really unmeasurable value. So I went to business school in Massachusetts, majored in finance, and of course, once you go to business school, you can do a lot of things, such as work in the stock market, the New York stock market, which is huge. But I remember thinking, when I was looking at that opportunity, I said to myself, well, I would rather actually spend most of my time talking about Africa, helping people invest in Africa, know about Africa. Why would I take, for example, the CFA exam, which is worldwide, it's recognized. But it's just, for me, there was a disconnect there. And I do believe, and I'm actually happy to even feel that way, that taking the CMA exam and routing investment from the diaspora to Rwanda, it would be an excellent activity for me to partake in. So that was just an update from the video that I posted yesterday. I will have more. Maybe I'll be more. I thought I would upload maybe one video a week, but as I'm going through this process, I might actually be posting every other day or so. We'll see. So I just wanted to greet everyone in the United States, and also wish everybody on the other side of the Atlantic a great afternoon and a great evening. I will be updating you all very soon. Thank you for watching.